good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, June the 10th, Community Development Human Services Committee. I am Jason Winston, chair of the committee. I am joined by my colleagues. To my right, we have Councilmember Andrea Boone. To my far left, we have Councilmember Bakhtiari, who's over there, Councilmember Westmoreland, Dozier, and Norwood. So this does constitute a quorum, so I do officially call this meeting to order. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda. We have a second by Westmoreland. If you can please open the vote.
One moment. Can you repeat the seconder, please?
Westmoreland.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda is adopted.
All right, thank you, colleagues. You've had a chance to pour over the minutes from our last meeting, so I will make a motion to approve. We have a second by Bakhtiari. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes are approved.
Thank you. This does take us to the public comment section of our agenda today. We have several speakers signed up. Each of you will have 3 minutes, and then we will gently remind you when time is up. So at this time, we'll start with Henry Jordan. You have 3 minutes.
Giving unto the Spirit of God to everyone that's here. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. Psalms 101, 7th verse. The ideal king sings to the Lord. Keep his personal life pure and administer social justice. James Swift, why do you ask for glory and receive pay for what Christ has done in me? As the nations which the Lord destroys before your face, so shall ye perish, because ye will not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. That's Deuteronomy 8, chapter 20th verse. These verses serve as a great arraignment of the chosen people who have become corrupt and backslidden. God warns before his wrath come to pass. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and power. 1 Corinthians 2nd chapter 4th verse. The Corinthians thought they knew a great deal about the Holy Spirit. For more than most churches in apostolic times, perhaps they had experienced various manifestations of the Spirit's power. I fear the wrath of Jesus, do you? But he that is a hireling and not the shepherd, whose own sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming and leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catches them and scattereth the sheep. St. John 10, chapter 12 verse. A hireling, a servant for pay, will flee in time of personal danger because he is working for money and neither owns nor loves the sheep. James Swift, action is leading you away from Christ's protection. Jesus' protection plan is better than yours. We thank Christ for loving us more than we love ourselves. And that's the reason I stand today, because he loved me. Not that I deserve it, because I need his love. I need to show forth his love in me and in others. Thank you. Obey Jesus.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jessica Gill, followed by Janelle Wright.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you again for your service. My name is Jessica Gill, and I'm the local policy committee chair for House Atlanta, and I'm here today to talk about the tree protection ordinance. House Atlanta was brought in to discuss this issue for two reasons: that our members expressed concern that the TPO as proposed would negatively impact the city's goals of creating and preserving 20,000 affordable units and increasing housing supply. And that, two, we heard from those who participated in the lengthy committee process with the city and voiced their concerns, and they did not feel that their comments were incorporated into the ordinance. House ATL is here to help and also has not been brought to the table. For point one, it is important to recognize that we seek to both increase affordable subsidized units as well as encourage increasing supply that is accessible, such as the cottages built by Kronberg, those by NDP that may not be subsidized but are still in the affordable range, and even townhomes created with density that may keep the price more accessible. These are important to encourage home ownership that may not be subsidized but provides access. Density and infill are top recommendations for climate resilience, and the TPO appears to stifle densification by reducing the number of units. Let us help certify what this is, maybe to look at densifying and also coming in below 200% of the AMI or some measurement that gets these overarching goals. In addition, our letter asks to retain the maximum recompense, which was not included in the revised TPO. This is vital to provide predictability and stability so that our builders can obtain funding. We are in agreement that the recompense fee should be raised. The math is fuzzy and doesn't make sense to us based on how it's written now. Another point is we'd love for you to adopt 100% waiver and recompense fees for all affordable housing, which has not been included. Margins for affordable housing are so extremely thin. People buying or renting these homes are low to moderate income. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Janelle Wright.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Janelle Wright, and I am representing West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, affectionately known as WAWA. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that stewards the Utoy Creek, Sandy Creek, and Proctor Creek watersheds. We are based out of the Outdoor Activity Center and City Nature Preserve, located at 1442 Richland Road, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia, 30310. I'm also a resident of City of Atlanta and live in Capitol View neighborhood. WAWA's mission is to improve the quality of life within West Atlanta watershed by protecting, preserving, and restoring our community's natural resources. We are key stakeholder and focus group participants of the Trails ATL plan development, having shared feedback with members of the Trails ATL plan partners. We appreciate and value the open communication throughout this process thus far. We, West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, would like for Council to consider an external community engagement firm to support ongoing engagement methods throughout the design and implementation phases of the Trails ATL Master Plan Incorporation. While the MPU model and additional community engagement meetings across the city are helpful mechanisms, many residents are still left out and unaware of developing plans. A separate entity could equitably amplify the existing engagement efforts across the city. Ideally, with external community engagement leadership, we may also see our second request met, which is to develop comprehensive community benefit strategies that advance anti-displacement strategies across the city. Amongst relevant key stakeholders, we would like to see greater attention towards policy creation that protects existing and legacy tenants and residents from displacement. Ultimately, we believe that affordable housing impact statements referenced in Ordinance 14-0-1614 should also be considered in Trails ATL. Finalization. There is strong evidence that within our city's recent history that anti-displacement policies must be in place before development to effectively protect longtime residents. According to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition's study, Displaced by Design, 50 Years of Gentrification and Black Cultural Displacement in U.S. Cities, between 1980 and 2020, Atlanta saw 155 formerly majority Black neighborhoods flipped to majority white residents. These drastic changes disrupt existing social networks and cultural identity of residents, leading to a sense of loss and alienation and revitalization efforts that do not benefit residents that originally advocated for changes in the community. So ultimately, Wawa strives for solution creation alongside the Trails ATL implementation process. Our community is strengthened by legacy residents who embody the history and spirit of Atlanta. They deserve to benefit from access to green space without this risk of being priced out by extractive development practices, such as those that we've seen with the Beltline and the Old Fourth Ward Park. We hope to work in community with all partners to see these goals through. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Carson Brown, followed by Charlie Captain.
Good afternoon, council members. I come before you this afternoon to speak on a number of matters. The first is item number 11, authored by council member Michael Julian Bond, which would require that the arborist meeting take place at the initial stage of the tree permitting process. We would ask that the committee hold this item. There are still a few tweaks that our stakeholders are working through with council member Bond's office, including making this meeting optional and only binding to the arborist. So we would ask that the committee hold this paper while those tweaks are being made with the council member's office. The next is item number 12, which is authored by all of you to establish a program for the assistance of tree removals for senior citizen homeowners. I want to thank all of you for authoring this legislation. We think it's a fantastic paper, and we are proud to support it. We would also ask that you would increase this amount from $200,000 to either $300,000 or $400,000. But either way, we are in full support of this. And lastly, as it regards to the tree protection ordinance, I do just want to reiterate from our May 27th letter the need for the affordable housing waivers to be added back in, as well as the max recompense. Both of those, you can find our language in our May 27th letter. We would ask both those to be added back in. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Charlie Captain.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlie Captain, live in Morningside. There's a perception out there among many constituents that the developers run this city. You have an opportunity to really change that perception dramatically by taking action on the tree protection ordinance. It's been going on for, I don't know, years now, delay after delay after delay. And in the meantime, the trees just keep coming down because the penalties right now for tree destruction are, frankly, a joke. So this is the famous Nero's fiddling while Rome is burning kind of situation. The trees are not optional for the livability of Atlanta. Without the trees, Atlanta will not be able to exist. So I'm just urging you to stop listening to all the arguments that keep coming forward from developers about the hardship that they're going to suffer because the penalties are too strict or too high or whatever. It's time to actually protect the tree canopy of this city, because if we don't, our future is in jeopardy. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Joe Trahan, followed by Judy Yee, and we've been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Trahan, and I represent Ladisic Fine Homes. We are Atlanta's largest remodeler and have been for several years. Fact, a tree is a renewable resource. Fact, in 2005, a Senate subcommittee told the city of Atlanta their tree ordinance was unconstitutional. It's only gotten more strict since. Fact, trees die, trees fall. DOT removes trees, Parks and Recreation removes trees, yet the only people paying for the trees are the people who own trees. How about giving a tax break to the people who own trees? Only this week I spoke to a city arborist to final a project that I had. We planted 51 trees on this property, a house, and we were still able to be fined $6,500, and they want us to plant 4 more trees that they don't see on their approved list. Fact, you are adding to the cost of home ownership and doing nothing for affordable housing in Atlanta. Here's an invoice from an active property. We paid $8,400 for tree protection, and then we paid $9,900 in recompense. So that's $20,000 before we get out the gate. Think about that. Fact, you've heard Habitat say you're going to kill them in Atlanta. Please don't be the people responsible for ending the legacy of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter in Atlanta. Fact, Trees Atlanta has assets totaling $40 million. Fact, Trees Atlanta spends only 11.25% of their annual budget on planting trees. All of this money is paid for by people with trees. You've created a beast, and the beast needs to be fed continually. Fact, the city's tree fund has $13.5 million in it right now, all funded by the people who have trees. Where's our tree canopy? If the city plans on purchasing tree canopy, remember they don't have a good record at it. The city owned Lake Charlotte in the late 70s, and so now we had to buy it back. So that's a loss of $5 million. And yes, in the city of Atlanta, a tree has more rights than a property owner. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Judy Yee, followed by Jalil Anthony.
Good afternoon, council members. Here we are again. Good to see you and terrible to see you. I don't know how many times we're going to do this. But I tell you, I do have to make a statement. I'm not sure what the facts the gentleman earlier had to make about Trees Atlanta's budget. Completely off base. I can help him look through the data. But it's interesting that he focuses on money. When we're here, we keep on going down to the discussion of who's paying more money, what it costs to whom, but we fail to address the true cost, which is the cost to our community and their health and well-being and the long-term sustenance or sustainability of the people who live here. Too long we've been talking about money, especially when those equations never seem to work out for the public. But another little funny kind of sidebar, when I was sitting on this side of the room, I realized by habit I always sat on this side of the room, and someone made a very funny comment, and I said, what, is this a wedding? Is this a family of the bride on this side and the family of the groom on this side? We can probably say this is the family of the trees on this side, and this is the family of the developments on that side. And then we need to realize that if this is a wedding, it is a forced marriage. And if it is a forced marriage, we should be doing things that is the benefit of this union that must happen. But we keep on dividing, we keep on coming up with these false narratives, but at the end of the day, we fail to realize that if we're gonna join, we need to make sure that it benefits the community, and that community is a product of that marriage. So I encourage you, if you haven't looked at the 3 last-minute recommendations that Trees Atlanta has sent to you, we asked for 3 last-minute items to change, regardless of what your decision is. Recompense must come up. It is not a negotiable. It is not an opinion. It's not something whoever has the largest personal pocketbooks can determine what that money is. Recompense is a figure that the city itself had determined in 2019 is $260. That was back in 2019. It has rapidly increased. That is a market rate that doesn't change, just like the price of land doesn't change, just like the price of lumber doesn't change. The value and the cost of replacing trees does not change. It is not a negotiation. Not be a negotiable figure. We do ask for a tree density that after the construction is done, there's a minimum number of trees left on property, and that we hope that clear cutting is minimized by giving them an incentive by putting a recompense cap if they do some conservation. So we're short of a strong TPO. We hope to get there because tree preservation is still not being discussed in this current version. We think it's very important that affordable housing is well represented, but really for the benefit of the public and not just for discounting for people who put a minimal number of units just for the sake of meeting already existing requirements for affordable housing. When we do this, as we move forward, please, let's stop this fire drill every single month we're here not knowing what's coming up. In fact, I don't even know what's going to be coming up today. Give us a schedule. Give us your plans. Let's work together.
Thank you. Next, we have Jalil Anthony. Sorry, so we'll We'll have Dalil Anthony, followed by Ashani Omar.
Hello, my name is Dalil Anthony, and I've been part of this engagement for 15 years. City planning says that we've been at this since 2014. Not true. It started in 2010 with a consulting firm called WRT. We spent about 2 years then, both developers, tree advocates, city employees, working with WRT to come up with an ordinance that died in committee. 2014, it re-resurrected, died again, came back again, 2019, 2020, 2021. A little baby one got passed in 2022, but it did nothing to protect trees. And here we are 15 years later, and we still don't have a tree ordinance that even increases the recompense. You guys, we need to do something. We need to do something today. You are here today. If you pass the May 13th ordinance, preferably with the recommendations Trees Atlanta sent in, but even if you don't, just get the May 13th ordinance passed today, have it go into effect July 1st. There's no reason to postpone all the way to next January, because David Zapranic no longer needs to hire a bunch of new arborists or do anything that he was going to have to do with the earlier, more complicated ordinance. But we need to get this thing passed now. As far as the maximum recompense, Trees Atlanta came up with a plan in which maybe that could be put back in with a higher preservation standard. That would be acceptable. But let's talk about affordable housing for a minute. When you get right down to it, the argument here is how many trees can I cut down for free to subsidize affordable housing? And no one's stepping back and saying, why is our tree canopy the subsidy? Why not something else? Why not property taxes? Why are we saying that trees are the lowest common denominator, the thing that we are first willing to give up to subsidize affordable housing? Affordable housing is important, and yes, it needs to be subsidized, but with the tree canopy? Seriously? Think about that. Anyhow, I want to thank you for your time. I know you get sick of seeing us come here, and if you want to stop seeing us come here and take up your time, pass the tree ordinance today. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next speakers, Ashani Omar and then Andy Schneckenberger.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Ashani Omar. I am not here to talk about trees specifically, but I am here on behalf of the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership. We are an affordable housing developer here. We've been around for 35 years, and I am here specifically to talk about ordinance number 25-0-1267. And this is in reference to a land use change that we are requesting within the Lakewood Heights community. We are proposing 54 units of for sale homes ranging between 80% to 120% of the area median income. ANDP has had an opportunity over about the past 18 months to really engage residents within Lakewood Heights, and that has included engaging not only specifically the neighborhood association, but we've also hosted 2 stakeholder community meetings prior to starting our public approvals process to really make sure we were able to refine the proposed site plan and hear the concerns and incorporate those concerns into our site plan. Again, prior to submitting an application. The good news is last night we actually presented at the Lakewood Heights Neighborhood Association meeting and received approval from the Neighborhood Association, and we anticipate presenting next week on Tuesday to the NPU as we sort of proceed in this process. So we are seeking your approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Andy Schneckenberger, followed by Craig Pendergrass.
Good afternoon, council members. Apologies for my inability to do a housing commission update today. You hear the reason why, but I did want to just follow up on comments from Ashani. I've been assisting ANDP with the community engagement around that project that she was referencing. I wanted to add that The request is fully in line with both the Lakewood Heights LCI master plan and the CDP. To the tree ordinance, I do believe that there are a few opportunities to explore ways in which language can be added to actually change practice in the way that we develop and the way the city enables both the acquisition of the full development rights of property while also preserving and conserving, as we all want to see happen to help preserve our tree canopy. So I look forward to continuing to work on that. And I'll be back in 2 weeks with an update from the Housing Commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Craig Prendergast, and then we have Chet Tisdale. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's Prendergast or Prendergast.
Pendergrast.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, sir. I've spoken with you all before about, and this is about the tree preservation ordinance, the tree protection ordinance. And I spoke on the 13th, unaware of what gutting of many of the protections that the planning department included in its May 1 draft had been done with that May 13 draft. It gutted the tree preservation standard, which has good flexibility within it that allows for reasonable development. It does protect against clear cutting. So when you all advance a draft, please include the tree preservation provisions that were in the May 1 draft. Now, all of the ordinances, existing and drafts, have provisions that state that the developer, the applicant, shall preserve trees to the maximum extent practicable. But unfortunately, the arborist hasn't been applying that, and it has become necessary for overreaching tree cutting plans to be challenged at the tree commission. That's not a good and efficient use of anybody's time. The May 1 draft and the preservation standard provides good guidance on what it means to maximize tree preservation. That standard, that guidance is good for everybody. It's good law. It's good for the applicant to know what to expect. It's good for the community. It's good for the arborist. It's good for the tree commission. So my request to you is whatever you adopt, include the tree preservation standard. I, like Chet Tisdale, have represented developers as well as community members. I've been a student of this ordinance for a lot of years, and not all developers want to gut the tree preservation standard. Only a limited group of them. So please stand up for the community, for the trees, for reasonableness and flexibility. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Chet Tisdale.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This morning I met with representatives of Habitat for Humanity at the request of Rosalind Merrick, the president of Atlanta's Habitat for Humanity, and also with representatives from the planning department. And we talked about what are the appropriate standards for Habitat for Humanity. I'm committed to making sure that Habitat for Humanity can build what they want to build, and they will not be adversely affected by a tree protection ordinance. And I think we made a lot of progress on that. Tomorrow, I want to have lunch with Empire Communities to talk about their concerns and what they're interested in terms of preservation and tree protection. Friday, I'll have lunch with a representative from Seelig to talk about the same subject, because I think it's important to understand what the developers are willing to do, what they want to do. It'll make your job easier when it comes to crafting standards. Now, you've heard me talk about Atlanta's clear-cutting crisis before. It's Atlanta's environmental nightmare. This past week, it got worse. the American Lung Association came out with their report on the state of the air. Last year, Atlanta got a C for ozone. This year, Atlanta has an F for ozone, and we haven't even gotten into the hot summer months. An F for ozone. That's a clear and present danger to people's health. It's a killer. And we have to do something to address that crisis of temperature rise and heat. The lack of a tree protection ordinance hurts Atlanta's economy as well as its environment. It requires more money spent on stormwater infrastructure. How can we address this? Well, Matt Westmoreland recognized the Citizens Group back on June 15 of 2020, and working with Andrew Walter, who I'm glad to see here today, we spent 4 years negotiating a tree preservation standard. It's a very good standard. It gives developers and owners the buildable area that they need. The existing ordinance does not give it. It will end clear cutting on most residential lots in Atlanta. And if this City Council can pass that as an amendment to the May 13 ordinance, the tree preservation standard, it will be a model for U.S. cities. It's a potential landmark legislation for the city in the trees, and we need that. So I urge you, I've heard that the mayor wants the May 13 ordinance passed with no amendments. That will be a license to clear cutters to continue clear cutting for as long as they can. We must stop clear cutting. Please add the tree preservation standard to the May 13 TPO and pass it. Stand up for Atlanta's trees. It's time to save the trees. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker, I have Matt Adams signed up, but Matt, I think you might be here for a legislative item. Okay, and then next we have Kevin Norton and then Michael Paris.
Good afternoon, council members, and appreciate what Chet just said, and I think Chet is on to something when it comes to, talking more about how we get to a good solution. The more and more we talk, the more I believe that the solution that we're all looking for that can both save and enhance our city will be found by running project examples and having thoughtful conversations, as we've been doing. And having lunch with Chet tomorrow, as he mentioned. So. And each one of those conversations, I think, has been more and more productive as we keep going through this, even though we both sat on the tree protection working group, as did many people in this room. Where it stands today, as Empire Communities, we support the May 12th tree protection ordinance with some additions that included the affordability waivers and the maximum recompense. There's some new legislation that we know is on the agenda for today. Some of that, specifically item 11, which we'd like to see as a voluntary condition, not a mandatory. But I think there's some things that, as Carson said earlier, our preference would be for that to be held so that can be further evaluated so that also comes out correct. Tree protection has been and will be, Councilmember Bacchiari, who's no longer here today right now, had mentioned that this is going to be one of the most complicated pieces of legislation you guys have dealt with and are dealing with and are going to pass coming out of this committee. So we appreciate everything you guys have done with that. And I also want to say that, back to what Chet talked a few minutes ago about environmental components, there was also cool roof legislation that came out last week. And as a development community, we were in support of that. So I think that's illustrative of we're not all against trees. We're trying to do the right things. We're just trying to do them in the right way. It's a defining moment in our city's history, and we hope that you all will vote and make the right decision for the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Michael Paris, followed by Frankie Elliott.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Michael Paris, and I'm President and CEO of the Council for Quality Growth. First off, appreciate all the work all of you have put into this. I know this has been endless. It feels like it'll never end, like some of the other folks have said. I think we're coming closer to the end, and I appreciate all the effort everybody's put into it. And especially want to emphasize the work that the Department of City Planning has put into this, and all of their staff has really, really worked hard to execute the best version of this that they can. I think think I can only repeat what some of my predecessors have said. Again, as far as support of the May 12th version, but we urge you to consider the insertion of max recompense. That's very important. Of course, the affordable housing waivers, which we support. And those are two of the most important elements that I think need to be put into any draft we see going forward. Also, I know in this, on your agenda today, item 1341 addresses early arborist meeting, and we really support that as an option, not as a requirement, but as an option for developers to have an early look with the arborist as they go into the planning review process. And then you have item 1342, which is a fund for supporting senior citizens with assistance for tree removal and pruning, which we think that's a very, very, very good idea. As Kevin said, we last week came downstairs, we supported the cool roof ordinance. I think that was a great measure. Makes a lot of sense. It's a great measure to help cool this city down. So again, thank you for all your hard work, and appreciate you further considering these items.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Frankie Elliott, followed by Nikki Buggs.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Frankie Callan, Vice President of Government Affairs for Atlanta Commercial Board of Realtors. I'll just be real quick just to reiterate what those ahead of us have said. Issue number 1342, totally support it. Good funding there for seniors to help them take care of that. And also just want to ask on the May 12th version of it that we do add the recompense cap on that, and then also the affordable housing waivers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our last speaker for today is Nikki Buggs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. So Atlanta Procurement and Real Estate Code allegedly covers everything from initial requirements, source selections, contract administrations, and ethical consideration. In our community, in our neighborhood, we were once a nice, tight-knit community. Now we have a revolving door of transient Airbnb due to predatory short-term rental procedures and practices. Our homes we consider safe havens are being snapped up by investors that are more interested in profit over people, over our lives. These are investors that transform residential properties into hospitality units. Character affordability in our community has been systematically diminished and aesthetically taken down markedly. This Sunday, we had a stabbing in the building. This weekend, we had a plethora of break-ins in cars. Our security systems that they were kind enough to share that they spent $30,000 on, the doors are broken, and we constantly have migrants, vagrants, all types of people walking through the building. There are very few of us left in the building. So we're just unclear about why this is taking so long and why we're not getting the assistance that we've asked for. We've been to several groups, of which all of them point back to the city. So everyone's doing the finger-pointing game. We just need to know, how can we help you help us? That's all we need to know. We don't want to lose another homeowner fighting this cause and lose their lives or forced to sell. We need an emergency intervention. We can't say it any more than that. This issue extends beyond the mere convenience of what it represents, an attack on those who've invested and nurtured our community, who's built our community, people we've known for years that are now frightened. These measures should have been in place for homeowners, not just us, but homeowners. Rules enforced vigorously, people held accountable. And right now we have nothing. And right now we have nothing. So I will ask you, and I will continue to ask you until day's end, what do you need from us? What do you need from us? We'll be glad to help. We just need to know what you need from us. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that signed up today for public comment. This does take us to the presentation section of our agenda today. We had 2 scheduled, but we did need to reschedule one of those. So we'll have our 1 presentation by the Atlanta Continuum of Care. We'll receive their quarterly update from Catherine Vessel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Pleasure to be here today. My name is Catherine Vassell. I'm the CEO at Partners for Home, and this is our quarterly update for the Community Development and Human Services Committee. As a refresher, although I think all of you know who we are and what we do, Partners for Home is the lead agency or coordinating administrative body for the Atlanta Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care is made up of over 170 nonprofit, government, business, and community stakeholders who are all dedicated to making homelessness in Atlanta rare, brief, and non-recurring. All of our work is predicated on the philosophical approach that housing is the foundation by which we do anything else, that one cannot get a job, cannot get sober, cannot get back on somebody's mental health medications, stable medically, without a roof over their head. And so although our job is to create a coordinated crisis response system, much of our work is focused on scaling housing with the right types of supportive services wrapped around individuals to exit people out of the traumatic experience of homelessness as quickly as possible and get them stabilized in housing. To that end, over 96% of the people that are placed into housing in our continuum stay in housing and keep their housing. So we are leaning on evidence-based practices that the data supports are effective at keeping people in housing and or exiting them to permanent destinations. Over the little less than a decade that we've been operating in Atlanta, over 15,000 households have been housed to date. And as we anchor back to the data looking at 2016, which we'll look at in just a moment, we have seen an overall reduction of about 1/3 of our population who experience homelessness at any given time in our community. This year, and we'll look at this in just a moment in more detail, we have seen a 9% decrease in the number of people experiencing chronic homelessness. And as I think the committee members are aware, this is a population that is particularly important to us. We believe they are the most vulnerable in our community, along with a handful of other subpopulations. This is the group of people with long-term disabling conditions and long lengths of stay in homelessness, and without intensive intervention are likely not to exit on their own. As you are also aware, we are still in the throes of development of new housing for people experiencing homelessness, particularly through our supportive housing pipeline, as well as the mayor's new rapid housing initiative. And to date, we have just under 400 units that have been developed, with several hundred more underway and due to deliver by the first quarter of 26. So I want to pivot to share a little bit more in depth about the 2025 point in time count. We did offer a preview of this data to elected officials, and I think some of you were able to join us for that. But for those of you that were not, the report is now posted on our website, so you can read more in depth at your leisure. But to give you kind of a high level view of where we are in terms of our point in time count data, we saw a 1% increase in the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in our community on the January 27, 2025 count. As a reminder, the point in time count is just one data element that we look at when we look at our entire system as a whole in terms of the number of people who are in our system, the number of people coming into the homeless system year over year. It is one gauge of how we are progressing as a community, but not the only data tool in our toolbox. So I just want to remind us all that there is a tremendous amount of other data that we share frequently with City Council as well, and that this is just one of those data points. We do believe that this reflects an inflection point for us, and that we are really on the cusp of seeing our numbers begin to go back down in Atlanta, with a continued focus on rehousing at that proper pace and scale. with new preventative and diversion programs to reduce the inflow and ongoing support across community stakeholders, we believe we are on our way to making homelessness in Atlanta rare, brief, and non-recurring. I'll touch on a couple of our other subpopulations. We also saw some small declines in our young adults who are experiencing homelessness ages 18 to 24, as well as our veteran population. And we saw an uptick in the number of people experiencing family homelessness. We define a family as somebody with an adult in the household, as well as with minor children with them in the household. That 14% reflects 15 households. So overall, these changes in percentages reflect small numbers from a household standpoint. I do also want to juxtapose us compared to the national trends in homelessness, even as we anchor back to pre-pandemic levels, which would have been the January 2020 count. And as you can see from the trend slide, we are fortunately still trending downward despite this slight increase that we saw this year compared to our sister cities nationally. And then, as you all have seen year over year, as we anchor back to that 2016 mark, again, still trending downward from 2016 and really seeing that leveling off from 2024, especially where we did see a significant spike from the 22 to 23 count. We do believe, again, this reflects some stabilization, not just in the economy, in rents, and we've seen a reduction in the number of people inflowing into our system over the last year. If we can catalyze housing and increase the pace and scale of rehousing, again, we believe we will begin to see these numbers decrease this time next year. I want to just highlight a national spotlight that we just had by the National Alliance to End Homelessness. We'll send y'all the link to this story, but I oftentimes get the question, what are other cities doing around the country? And I would like to share this spotlight as an example of a time that other cities are looking to Atlanta to learn more about how we are leveraging and scaling investments to really create more housing interventions to exit people quickly out of homelessness. And this work has just recently been highlighted in a national spotlight at the national scale. Pivoting now to the Pryor Street encampment closure. Hopefully you all have seen the dramatic change that has occurred at what was the largest encampment at Pryor Street and Memorial, just south of Memorial Drive in our community. Over the last 6 weeks, we did realize a safe and successful resolution of this encampment through very close partnership and coordination with multiple departments across the city, including APD, the Mayor's Office, the Department of Public Works, Constituent Services, the Fire Department, and so many other partners at the city. We also partnered with the Georgia Department of Transportation, along with many of our service providers across the community. Advance notice was provided to the individuals in this encampment, and we've been actively providing outreach and engagement to this location for 4 weeks in a dedicated way, but many, many months leading up to that closure. And hopefully you all have seen the after. I'm quite certain that you were very familiar with the before. This encampment was a dangerous place with lots of dangerous activity that was going on that was harmful to the residents and the neighbors surrounding the encampment. It was not a healthy place to be or to live. As we went to close this encampment, there were rodents, there was trash, there was debris, and it was in no way, shape, or form a safe place for any human to lay their head. And so with that, to date, we have made 74 referrals to permanent housing of the individuals who were in that encampment. 42 individuals have moved into permanent housing. 27 individuals have been placed in shelter while they work on permanent housing placements. And while we have had some individuals decline offers of shelter and housing, we are continuing to work with and engage those individuals to get them connected to the resources and services that they desire. What's next? Last time we met, we shared an in-depth summary of the Atlanta Rising campaign, which is a comprehensive and incredibly ambitious $212 million campaign to achieve some of the goals in our current strategic community plan to reduce and end homelessness in Atlanta. What's different about this campaign is testing some new strategies that we know where we have gaps in our system, but also doubling down on what we know has been effective. So some of those gap areas include a new focus on prevention. We know that prevention has been a gray area in the past in our community, particularly in the way of where we invest dollars to actually prevent households from coming into homelessness. We are very proud to share that we are going to be the first pilot city to replicate what has been done and studied by what has been done in Santa Clara and has been studied by the University of Notre Dame's LEO initiative and shown to be statistically significant at reducing inflow into homelessness. We have received a planning grant from them already and are under contract to launch targeted prevention work in Atlanta starting in January to really test some new strategies at reducing the number of people that come into our system. So whereas before you've heard me say we're a homeless crisis response system, we cannot go upstream and turn the faucet off. We are now venturing to try to go upstream and turn the faucet down and reduce that inflow by keeping people stably housed who are most at risk of becoming homelessness from coming into our system. We're also recognizing that we need to really shore up our service stabilization system by really partnering with the healthcare sector in a more intentional way. Atlanta Rising includes the Project HEAL initiative, which is partnering with the 5 major area health systems around the city, including Grady, Piedmont, Wellstar, Northside, and Emory, to invite them to the table to ask them to consider investing in solutions that will keep people out of their hospital, out of their emergency rooms, and get people out of inpatient hospital stays faster, reducing the cost to the health systems, but also ensuring that we have the right type of care for people once they get into housing so that they don't have to go back to the hospital or don't return to homelessness. Lastly, we really want to focus on unsheltered homelessness as a whole, starting with downtown. So you may have heard of Downtown Rising, and I think we also talked about this the last time we met. One of the key goals of our strategic plan is to reduce and end unsheltered homelessness. When we talk about ending a type of homelessness, what that means for us is that we have housed everybody who is unsheltered today, and that we've created a system that is scaled and resourced sufficiently to be able to very quickly then rehouse new people that come into our system day over day, knowing that we're not going to be able to eliminate people from becoming homelessness altogether, but we've resourced our system to get folks quickly out of homelessness and into shelter, and then exited to housing as quickly as we can. So the goal for Downtown Rising is to pilot that, starting with downtown because we have secured the resources to start there. We have been in planning with the community for over 4 months now, meeting on a biweekly basis, and then biweekly in between with ad hoc committees. We have just made awards to add dedicated outreach capacity to the downtown area. Our partners there will include Gateway, Hope Atlanta, Mercy Care, Urban Alchemy, Mend Culture, and Georgia Harm Reduction Coalition. These teams will fund dedicated outreach workforce for the downtown area to begin engaging individuals who are sleeping downtown, assessing them, and getting them connected to rehousing solutions. Our goal is to rehouse 400 individuals who are sleeping downtown by the end of this year and to end unsheltered homelessness in the downtown area by this time next year. Included in that includes several different components of this work beyond leading with services and focused on rehousing people who are unsheltered downtown. We are also looking more broadly at how we address challenges throughout our community to improve the infrastructure and improve the way that people experiencing homelessness connect to our system as a whole. And so that includes things like looking at the infrastructure across downtown. How do we support providers in reducing lines that go down the street when they are opening their door for sharing a meal or services? How do we reduce trash and debris from congregating outside from other groups that come into the city to share food? And how do we coordinate better so that we are leveraging all the resources that are coming into the city and connecting them to providers that are doing this work day in and day out under a roof with dignified services where people can sit down to get connected to a meal and to get support with housing ultimately and access to shelter. This is a map of where we are targeting this downtown work. This gives you sort of a preview of how we are thinking about dividing up the work. It will be very targeted by zone and by geography so that we can work in a coordinated way to assign outreach teams and to do this in a way that we are not approaching a zone or a geography until we have sufficient housing resources to offer to everyone that is sleeping in that particular area. I'll just provide a quick update on the capital investments that are happening in parallel to this work. So again, we're adding additional infrastructure from an outreach capacity standpoint, but on the flip side, we are investing in and building new units of housing and acquiring rental units across the community to be able to ensure we have that outflow. We have a destination place to be able to exit people to as we're engaging them and enrolling them and getting them document ready. So we've got 63 units through the Rapid Housing Unit online today. That's through the Melody and the Bonaventure property. We got another 365 units that have come online through the Permanent Supportive Housing Initiative that was already underway. We have 200 units that are now under construction. Cooper Street will break ground this Friday, and Waterworks is actively under construction. And then we've got another 225 units that are currently under contract and due to come online over the next 30 to 120 days. This capacity, these 225 units plus another 200 units at the end of the year, will give us a new capacity that we've never had all at one time. So that's going to enable us to move faster and at a greater pace and a greater scale than we've been able to move before. Lastly, on our pipeline, we've got another 114 units that are approved and pending and underway. Heritage at Westlake and 1064 Oglethorpe are actively under construction and due to deliver by the first quarter of 26. And another 117 units that are, again, also under construction or under conditional approval and due to be coming online in the coming months. With that, I will close, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Appreciate the quarterly update. At this time, we'll take questions from colleagues. We'll start off with Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to see you as always, Catherine. I was on a panel with Catherine earlier last week at the Regional Housing Forum, and it was really great to partner with you on that and then get to partner with you again this week with the 405 Cooper project groundbreaking, which I'm very excited about. It's been a long journey to get to this point, and I look forward to doing more projects beyond 405 Cooper in the near future. With the Rapid Housing Initiative, 2 of the 3 projects that we've announced are in my district, so I'm glad that District 4 is really leaning forward and trying to do this sort of work in partnership with Partners for Home and partnership with the administration. So it was a really exciting time. Just a few quick questions for you. Something that stuck out with the report that you had about the Pryor Street encampment closure with, I think it was 24 individuals decided not to take the opportunity to go into housing. I know often when we talk about encampment closures, we talk about how typically it can take 8 to 10 engagement before someone feels enough trust to be willing to go into housing that's being offered to them. Do we have kind of a sense from a percentage wise with all the encampment closures we've done over the course of the last 5 years, what that decline rate is? I imagine that goes into our operational planning, and it's just so I can, when I talk to constituents, I have that number at the ready. Do we have a sense of what that number typically is, a percentage of people who refuse to go into housing?
Yeah, that is a great question. We appreciate all your support, Councilmember Dozier. We can get that we can compile that for you. We have tracked that by encampment over the last several years, but have not compiled it all together. We are working with the national consultant on this next body of work as we lead this strategic planning. And as they've gone forward and led some of this work in other communities, they have also gathered some data that we can share as well. They were just sharing with us this morning that the declination rate they had in 2 other communities was less than 10%. And generally our declines are very low. To be honest, I think that was a higher number of declines than we typically see in an encampment closure, particularly when we're offering a permanent housing solution. I think the good news is a number of those individuals relocated nearby, and we're actively engaging that site. And so I think one thing we do know is as we're able to build trust and rapport, as people see that we're legit, that their friends, their network has actually moved into permanent housing and that it's real, that there will be a higher uptick at that point. And so that's what we're counting on as we continue to engage people who have since declined, but we can get you that information.
Oh, thank you. And then I guess on a similar note, I am also interested in some of the spatial analysis or geographic analysis for the locations of the folks that we engage with as part of our PIT counts every year. I recognize that some of that information is not going to be shared publicly for the safety of the folks that live in some of these communities. But just for me, just looking at it from a data analysis standpoint, I'll be really interested to see where encampments or where people just being found sleeping in parks, like what that has looked like year over year and how that's ebbed and flowed, just as we think about how we distribute resources, how we partner with the folks who are doing the urban feedings, for lack of a better term, just trying to think through how do we leverage that data to make some good policy decisions. I know myself and some colleagues are very interested in trying to make more accessible access to bathrooms. I know we only have a handful of some of the self-cleaning bathrooms, but if there's opportunities to provide more of those across not just downtown, but across the city, we'll love to lean into some of the spatial data that y'all might have to look into that. And happy to get with y'all offline and maybe dig into that a little bit. But I know we've been doing these PIT counts for a long time, and y'all have seen, there was a huge encampment underneath the I-20 bridge on Metropolitan that has been thankfully not had re-encampment. But I imagine those folks end up somewhere else, and let's just have a further conversation about that, because I think that could inform some other policy solutions that we might be thinking about.
Yeah, we can absolutely have a follow-up on that.
Perfect, thank you. And then with the Downtown Rising work that is ongoing, I saw all the different housing partners that are part of that work. Are there any employment or workforce development partners at the table there as well? Just thinking about how I imagine some of our folks who are unsheltered may not have job opportunities or may have challenges finding employment opportunities because of they might have felony in their background. Some of the same issues that we work with in our communities as a whole, but multiply with this particular population. I think about Georgia Works, who does dedicated work with our unsheltered population for employment. I wonder if there's other partners we can bring to the table, whether it's through our Department of Labor and WorkSource, or whether it's through some of the folks who have been just doing work around construction jobs and things like that. Housing is one part of the equation, but making sure people can continue to build upon that, I think is absolutely critical. So I don't know if those employment partners or workforce development partners are also at the table too.
Yeah, one of the things that we are doing different with this launch is really making sure that the case management and the outreach entities are fully comprehensively trained. And so when we talk about going out and engaging somebody, the first course of business is meeting with that individual to kind of understand what their needs and preferences are. If somebody says, I want to work, I can work, then that is going to be the first course of action. And we do partner with, of course, we partner with Georgia Works and First Step Staffing are some of our key providers, Center for Employment Opportunities, the Urban League, and others. We have met with the workforce department as well to kind of see what opportunities there are. And then embedded in some of our shelters, there are employment programs. So we've been meeting very consistently with the Mission and with Gateway and Salvation Army, all of whom have job readiness programs embedded within their shelters, to really talk about how do we make sure that we're getting people to the right places and the right resources for what they need. And because for somebody that wants to go to work, needs to go to work, we need them to go to work and they can exit with a little bit of support versus some of the other higher needs people in our system that are going to need more intensive, more costly interventions. So we always want to make sure at the front end, we're doing that homework and getting people connected to that right resource.
Okay. And then my last question, just with regards to just the overall vision around Downtown Rising. I know we're not the only city that is preparing for World Cup. Dallas and New York and others are going through some similar introspection and how do we address homelessness in a way that is dignified for the people who are experiencing homelessness, but also keeps not just our tourists and visitors safe, but also our existing residents and existing businesses safe as well. There is some concern, especially with what we've seen in other cities that have gone through a similar sort of process, that their policies are too onerous. So for instance, in Dallas, they're explicitly prohibited sleeping on the streets, and that's being enforced in a very aggressive way ahead of the activations that we can expect next year. So there's concern that the Downtown Rising program could potentially be as aggressive in a bad way. And so just if you can talk to how we're ensuring that folks aren't being mistreated, that people, I got reports that there were some unsheltered folks that were dropped off at the Greyhound station a week ago, and then immediately folks are being arrested, and I haven't verified that, but that's kind of the conversation that I'm having with advocates in the space, and I want to try to assure people that, Atlanta is going to be doing this work in a very compassionate and dignified way, but you're, as a person leading the efforts to execute this work, I want to make sure that you can talk to that and assuage some of those concerns.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I don't know what's more dignified than offering people permanent housing with supportive services, get folks off of the street. But more specifically, Downtown Rising, as I said before, is a part of our larger strategic plan, which was launched almost 2 years ago now to really target and reduce unsheltered homelessness. The data speaks for itself. We saw a significant spike in the number of people who are sleeping on our street, and I don't think it's lost on anybody that we are in a crisis right now as a community around the number of people and encampments. So I think we all agree on that, I would venture to say. Downtown Rising is not about, hiding people for the World Cup. It's about leveraging this moment that we have in time to bring in an additional level of resources that we've never been able to leverage before. As I said, this is a $212 million campaign. We've never set about trying to raise that much money before. And all of it is focused on rescaling housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. We just came from Dallas. Prior to that, we were in Denver, and before that, we were in San Francisco. Communities all around the country, and we're learning from them as well, are investing resources to scale shelter and housing to be able to get folks immediately off the street and into a safe place while they can work on their permanent housing solutions. We're doing both and. Denver added a ton of non-congregate shelter, and they haven't released their data yet, but I think their shelter number went up and their unsheltered number went down. San Francisco saw something very similar. They scaled both housing and shelter. And Dallas has a highly coordinated effort underway where they rehoused every street sleeper in the downtown area. Since rehousing people, they have now closed downtown to sleeping. But what that means is the workflow they've created is when somebody comes into downtown and tries to set up a bed, they are engaged by a multidisciplinary service team, and they are offered immediate access to shelter. And that individual is then transported immediately to shelter where they work on their housing placement. And that is what we are trying to replicate. We want to create a system where we're incentivizing somebody to go to shelter and by creating outflow into housing from shelter. And we're doing both, though, in Atlanta. We're scaling housing. We're doing direct from the street to housing. And then what we envision post those 400 going directly to housing is then being able to create a workflow where people can get immediate access to shelter. Our Client Advisory Council, which is made up of 25 people with lived experience, did 300 surveys of people who are homeless in the downtown area just over the last quarter. They did it in like 2 weeks' time. And 76% of the people they surveyed said they want shelter. And I think it's not lost on folks that it is challenging to access shelter because many of our shelters, they're not city funded. It's not all one system. They're all disparate systems and providers. So they all have their unique process, which is fine. It just makes it harder to navigate and access. And so we're bringing those major shelters to the table, as I mentioned, and saying, what would it look like for us to create a unified workflow to make it easier and to ensure that when we do close an area to sleeping, we know we have an immediate placement to offer to that individual. So that is the vision and the plan.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I yield.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Boone.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. I see the Martin House on the permanent supportive housing pipeline. Is that the Martin House located in District 10?
Yes, I believe so. With National Church Residences? Yes.
Okay. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Because right now that's a senior citizen high-rise.
National Church Residences, it will stay a senior high-rise. They want to renovate the property and make it nicer. And they're going to dedicate a portion of the units for seniors who would be coming out of homelessness.
Okay, how many units will that be?
I can pull it up for you, or I can share that after. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head.
You can call me back or email me that information.
Okay.
I just want to make sure the residents do know that will be happening.
Yeah, and I can get you a more detailed picture of what they are planning. I would assume they would have, it's 8 units in total for PSH, and I'm not sure the total units of the property as a whole.
Okay. That's not many.
And the renovations, it's 150 total units. 8 units would be dedicated to PSH. It's likely that the renovations would take 2 years. So I would have assumed they would have been doing some neighborhood engagement.
But that's okay. Well, I'll pass it on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments from colleagues? Just want to say I was encouraged to see so many new supportive permanent housing units coming on board. Let us know how we can continue to support you in that effort. I think that's something that's definitely going to help, to Councilmember Dozier's point, making sure that we're working strategically to permanently get people housing. So excited to support that effort. So thank you for that. Seeing no other questions or comments from colleagues, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That takes us.
So just a reminder to everyone, we did have Atlanta Housing Commission's quarterly update, but it has been rescheduled to June the 24th.
That takes us to Section H, Communications, 25C0074.
I think your mic might be off.
Can you hear me now? A communication from Tanya Greer, County Clerk, to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, submitting the appointment of Mr. Reese Adams McCraney to serve as a member of the Beltline Tax Allocation District Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Colleagues, Mr. McCraney couldn't be here today, so I'll make a motion to hold. A second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. That takes us to our regular agenda. Item number 2, 25O-1319, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to amend the city's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan and the 2018 annual action plan budget for the purpose of reprogramming home investment partnership program funds in an amount not to exceed $1,020,591.00 for continued contract services. Is this better? Okay, I'll start over. 25O-1319, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to amend the city's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan and the 2018 annual action plan budget for the purpose of reprogramming home investment partnership program funds in an amount not to exceed $1,020,591.00 for continued contract services with Radiant Development Partners and EQ Housing. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the council listed herein and for the purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer Burton Webb.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just want to know if you can speak to this legislation.
Oh, yes. We have 3 legislations, but this one first in particular is for Sylvan Hills, the Sylvan Hills project. We're just doing this legislation so that we can use older funds before they expire, so not adding any additional funds to the project, just allowing the department to move or transfer older funds so that we can expend them quickly before they expire.
All right. Any questions, comments from colleagues? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Westmoreland. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 3, 25O-1320, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to amend the city's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan, the 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan, the 2019 Community Development Grant Fund budget, the 2020 Community Development Grant Fund budget, and the 2021 Community Development Grant Fund budget for the purpose of reprogramming community development block grant program funds in an amount not to exceed $50,000.00 to fund the CDBG Campbellton Road Sidewalk Improvement Project. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you.
Same thing with this one, using the older funds that were mentioned in this legislation to go ahead and finish this project, the Campbellton Road Sidewalk Improvement Project, which is a project with the Department of Transportation here in the city.
Any questions? Got a motion to approve by Boone. I'll second. If you could please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 4, 25O-1321, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to enter into an easement agreement with the Atlanta Independent School System to provide a public trail known as the Amani Trail Spur located at 1550 Hosea L. Williams Drive Northeast, to authorize the mayor on behalf of the city of Atlanta to execute the easement agreement and for other purposes.
Deputy Commissioner Voss.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of council. This is a pretty good caption, but in general, this allows for an easement with APS, Atlanta Public Schools. This trail will connect to the East Side Trolley Trail, which is near Gilliam Park. It's close to 1550 Hosea Williams Drive. We'll be working closely with the school to get the trail implemented, and is being constructed by the Path Foundation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from colleagues? A motion to approve by Norwood. Sounds like a second from Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 5, 25O-1329, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet to waive Chapter 2, Article 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement with Fuse Corp. For the term of 1 year, effective May 1st, 2025, and ending April 30th, 2026, in an amount not to exceed $80,000.00, payable in 2 equal installments of $40,000.00 from the fiscal year 2025 budget and the fiscal year 2026 budget for the continued placement of an executive fellow who will assist the mayor's chief policy advisor, Division of Strategic Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives, for a 12-month fellowship to ratify all services provided by Fuse Corp. From May 1st, 2025 through the execution of an agreement, all contracted services to be charged and paid from the accounts listed herein and for the purposes.
Any questions, comments from colleagues? I will make a motion to approve, unless you have a question for Mr. Tucker. We have a second. By Westmoreland, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. If there is no objection from the committee, may we take items 6 and 7 as a block?
Yes, please proceed.
Item number 6, 25O-1331, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a lease agreement between the City of Atlanta and the Atlanta Independent School System for approximately 1 acre portion of the property located at 2751 Peyton Road, Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318, and commonly known as Chattahoochee Park Back, waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Chapter 2, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. And for the purposes, item number 7, 25O-1332, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a lease agreement between the City of Atlanta and the Atlanta Independent School System for approximately 3.5 acre portions of the located at 2751 Peyton Road, Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318, and commonly known as Chattahoochee Park Front, waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Chapter 2, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation and for other purposes.
Deputy Commissioner Voss.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chair. We really appreciate Atlanta Public Schools working with us on this project. This is a park known as Chattahoochee Park. It's already in existence. It's been there off Peyton Road for a number of years. Turns out that Atlanta Public Schools owns it. So we appreciate Atlanta Public Schools working with us to create this lease agreement. They've divided it into 2 parcels. There's one in the back. If you've been there, there's a basketball court in the back. That's parcel number 1. It's about 1 acre. In the front, it's about 3.5 acres. We already maintain it. We will continue to maintain it. It's a 5-year lease. But what this really does is it allows us to do improvements to the park. And there's been a number of community groups that have worked to get grants and funding, and this allows us for this to happen. So we really appreciate Atlanta Public Schools for their support. Thanks.
Glad we figured out the ownership piece of that. So we got a motion to approve by Boone, a second by Dozier. If you could please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable. That takes us to item number 8, 25O-1333, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis to adopt the Huff Road Multimodal Plan to amend the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan by incorporating by reference said plan and for other purposes. This item will need to be held for its public hearing.
Motion to hold. A second was by Westmoreland.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held. That takes us to item number 9, 25O-1337, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of City Planning to accept the Community Challenge Grant from the American Association of Retired Persons in an amount not to exceed $17,500.00 for the reconnection of communities divided by infrastructure, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2025 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations an amount of $17,500.00 $15,500.00 to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements in connection with the grant and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, this item will need to be amended. The amendment corrects funding streams.
I'll make a motion to amend. And second by Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment is before you.
Okay. Mr. Adams, finally.
Thank you, council members. So my name is Matt Adams. I'm a assistant director in the Department of City Planning. I manage the City of Atlanta's historic preservation programming. So this project, the grant rather, is we were very excited to find out that we got this. It's $17,500 that allow us to implement a program of recording oral histories from senior citizens in various areas of the city, specifically targeting seniors who have lived experience where infrastructure was used to break up or otherwise impact African American or minority communities. So what this will result in is a art installation that'll be here at City Hall and in other places it'll travel around, where you can listen to those stories and then have newspaper clippings, photographs, maps in front of you that sort of help narrate the story that you're hearing as the first person experience is being explained to you. We're planning on recording these oral histories at 3 locations: the Pittman Park Recreation Center, Thomasville Recreation Center, and William Walker Recreation Center. The locations and the amount of recordings are limited to the grant that we have. If there are other stories that we feel that we absolutely need to include in this, which I am absolutely certain we will find those, we do have the ability to record those. We just won't be able to use the contractors that we have secured.
Awesome. This sounds really amazing. Any questions, comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. A second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
That takes us to item number 10, 25-0-1339, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond to waive Section 15-07.006 of the Land Subdivision Ordinance of the City of Atlanta for the purposes of facilitating an acknowledgement of 1052 Hurst Street Northwest as to separate lots substantially consistent with the historic configuration and prevailing plat pattern and for the purposes. This item will need to be held.
Yeah, I had a motion too. Sorry, we'll listen to Ms. Robinson.
Good afternoon, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. There are several missing sections describing the property in this ordinance and the action to be taken. There are several blanks, and so at this point it would not be legally sufficient to pass. Without that information. We have contacted Department of City Planning, and I believe staff has contacted some other departments to try to run this information to ground. However, it is not available at this time, and due to the fact that the information in the ordinance is lacking, from a legal standpoint, it would not have proper legal effect to move forward.
Well, I guess my question with that is that these are 2 parcels recognized by Fulton County as separate parcels. The City of Atlanta approved the building of a home on one of these parcels in the 1990s, recognizing it as a separate parcel. And so all this ordinance seeks to do is to recognize what Fulton County has been recognizing for the past 60 years, that there have been 2 individual property owners paying taxes on these properties as separate properties. The error is within the planning department, so it doesn't surprise me that they don't have, quote unquote, the right information. And so rather than hold it, I'd like to make a substitute motion to move forward on condition that we have the information by Monday.
Second. I have a second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on condition. That takes us to item number 11, 25-0-1341. Does the caption change? I believe the caption changes. May we have a motion to bring forth the substitute?
I make a motion to bring forth the substitute.
Second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is not before you. 25-0-1341, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the Atlanta City Code, Part 2, Chapter 158, Article 2, to require that an arborist meeting take place at the initial stage of the tree permitting process and for other purposes.
Thank you. Councilmember Bond.
Yes, I'd like to move approval, but I will say that the substitute addresses the issue that members of the development community raised about the ordinance or the meeting being optional. So the substitute does address that.
Thank you. I'll second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. That takes us to item number 12. This caption also changes.
Second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is not before you.
Move approval.
One moment, I have to read the new caption. 25-0-1342, an ordinance by council members Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Ishay Collins, Jason H. Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Wan, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Antonio Lewis, as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the Atlanta City Code, Part 2, Chapter 158, Article 2, to establish a program for assistance with tree removal and pruning for eligible senior citizen homeowners in the city of Atlanta, to partner with nonprofit organizations to assist with the cost of tree removal and pruning and for other purposes.
Councilmember Bond, I'll give you the floor, but I just want to know, I know this legislation changes that dollar amount to $300,000. I'd like to know if you'd be open, colleagues, to changing that number to $400,000.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I had a conversation with Mr. Pace last night, and so the amount should be accurately reflected as $400,000. So without objection, I'd like to make that amendment.
We have a second by Councilmember Westmoreland.
One moment. The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been amended.
Move approval.
Second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute as amended. That takes us to item number 13, 25-0-1344. An ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to amend the city's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan, the 2018 Annual Action Plan budget, the 2019 Annual Action Plan budget, and the 2025 Home Investment Fund budget for the purpose of reprogramming Home Investment Partnership Program funds in an amount not to exceed $1,100,000.00 for the redevelopment of 12 units of affordable multifamily housing with Quest Community Development Organization for the properties located at 694 and 700 Dalvecny Street Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Burton Webb, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, same thing, just a different project. This is with Quest Community Development. The project has actually been completed. Of course, with ongoing construction costs rising, there are some additional costs that they experienced. They are eligible costs, so we are reprogramming some additional funds so that we can continue to pay them back and reimburse them.
Any questions, comments from colleagues? I will make a motion to approve. And a second by Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. That takes us to resolutions. If there is no objection from the committee, may we take items 14 and 15 as a block?
Please proceed.
Item number 14, 25R 3584, a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into the first renewal for 1 year under the agreement number listed. Abacus Mind Math Tutors in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually, commencing on July 2nd, 2025 through July 1st, 2026. Young Engineers of Atlanta in an amount not to exceed $75,000.00 annually, commencing on July 16th, 2025 through July 15th, 2026. Second Nature for Children in an amount not to exceed $80,000.00 annually, commencing on July 17th, 2025 through July 16th, 2026. First Evolution Arts in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually, commencing on July 24th, 2025 through July 23rd, 2026. Blueprint Camp in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually, commencing on July 24th, 2025 through July 23rd, 2026. The Village Tutorial in an amount not to exceed $70,000.00 annually, commencing on July 26th, 2025 through July 25th, 2026, and an aggregate amount not to exceed $515,000.00 annually to provide youth, teen, out-of-school programming on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
I have, sorry.
Item number 15, 25R 3585, a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into the first renewal for 1 year under agreement 3D Girls in an amount not to exceed $25,000.00 annually. C.E. Mitchell Tutoring Services in an amount not to exceed $55,000.00 annually. The Generation in Focus in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually. Johnson Unlimited Management and Production Company in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually. STEM Education Experience in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually. Thriving Minds After School Academy in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually. Vision Tutoring Educational Foundation in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00 annually, commencing on July 9th, 2025 through July 8th, 2026. In an aggregate amount not to exceed $580,000.00 annually to provide youth, teen, out-of-school programming on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Deputy Commissioner Voss.
Again, thanks, Mr. Chair, members of council, and thank you, Jasmine, you'll not have to read those again for another year. These are 1-year contracts that the department uses for after-school services. Last year, we had over 2,000 students. They just finished that program. We started camp yesterday, and on Monday, we start next year's after-school program. These are the type of services, academic, fitness, technology that we offer to all of our after-school program participants. All of the vendors have performed satisfactorily, and we are happy to answer any questions you might have about them.
Just question on timeline. So this funding will go towards the next iteration?
Exactly.
Okay.
We get them signed up for the summertime, and they'll get you ready to go by what is now August 4th for the beginning of the school year.
All right, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable. That takes us to item number 16, 25R 3586, a resolution by Community Development Human Services Committee to retroactively extend the sunset date of the commission to determine an appropriate manner in which to honor Judge Thelma Wyatt Cummings Moore, established pursuant to Resolution 24R 4306 through August 31st, 2025, and for the purposes.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. That takes us to Section K, papers held in committee. The first of which is item number 27, 25O1133, an ordinance by council members Matt Westmoreland, Michael Julian Bond, Ishay Collins, Jason Winston, Hamir Faroki, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Swan, Mary Norwood, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Antonio Lewis to adopt the Trails Atlanta Plan as the City of Atlanta's master plan for a citywide network of trails, to incorporate the Trails ATL Plan into the City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan, Plan A, and for the purposes.
Thank you. But we do have a presentation, I was told. I know everybody on this committee has seen it. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, there you go. Ms. Buckner. Thank you. We're up to the Trails ATL ordinance, and the floor was yours for the presentation for it.
Okay. Good afternoon, Councilmember Winston and council members. My slideshow here before you. The Department of Parks and Recreation is requesting the adoption of the Trails ATL plan that will be included in the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan. Next slide, please.
There's a clicker, I think.
Oh, I have a clicker.
Yes.
Hey, okay. So in December of 2023, the commissioners of the Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of City Planning, Department of Watershed Management, and the Department of Transportation came together to sponsor a plan for walking and wheelchair accessible citywide trails, heretofore called Trails ATL. Eric Ganther, who is here tonight, of the Path Foundation, was brought in as a contracted project manager to begin the development of this plan. This plan was sponsored in part because of a statistically valid survey that indicated that the #1 interest of residents of the city of Atlanta in terms of parks and recreation was multi-purpose paved shared use trails. This was subsequently identified as an action item in the Activate ATL Recreation and Parks for All 10-year comprehensive master plan under the goal to connect parks and recreation resources. Next, I'm about to do it again. So all ages, all abilities, all Atlantans. The Trails ATL plan identifies alignments and guidelines that will bring trails for all ages, all abilities, and all Atlantans all over the city. They will connect with existing trails, the Beltline, and every neighborhood. They will even take you from the eastern side of Atlanta all the way to Alabama. There are currently 80 miles of trails in existence, and the plan will bring the entire network to 525 miles. After reviewing data on where Atlantans want to go, it was clear the preference was for greenways rather than street trails. So the focus of this plan is protected trails, including greenways, that will take you through communities, mainly on publicly owned land and easements. The plan identifies 3 phases of trails over 30 years. The first phase has been outlined to be built over the next 10 years and will add 34 miles to the existing network. The beauty of the first phase is that it will bring expanded access to all areas of the city, north, south, east, and west. The plan identifies alignments. However, there are more details that will follow following the development of an implementation strategy. The planning team was led by DPR, and the partners are listed here. The plan was also vetted by a technical advisory committee. In terms of public engagement, DPR made every effort to reach the maximum number of citizens. Over 4 rounds of public engagement that brought meetings to every area of the city, people were able to tell us what they wanted their trails to look like. And in the first round, we held individual meetings as well as partnered with the public engagement efforts of Plan A, which you have heard about all along. Under the second round, we focused on council districts, having a meeting in each of the 12 council districts. In the third round, we met in clusters of city council districts and finally presented at each NPU. In addition, PATH held a series of themed focus groups. In all, Trails ATL was developed with a total of 123 public meetings, 26 focus group sessions, 33 one-on-one stakeholder meetings, 2,743 survey responses, and 98 email responses. In addition, there was a dedicated website, and it was published in our DPR MPU highlights. So out of all that public engagement, Atlantans clearly asked for greenways, followed by side paths. The least preferred type of trail was the shared street trail. When asked where you want to go, Atlantans indicated that commercial areas, parks, the Beltline, MARTA, and schools were the top 5 survey interests. Additionally, the survey data indicated that 82% of those surveyed would exercise more and 86% would drive less. This is significant because it folds right into our interest of seeing the need for Atlantans that desire to be healthier and the fact that if given more choices, they may choose a short walk instead of driving. Once the plan is fully developed, 95% of our city will bring Atlantans within a 10-minute walk of a walk or wheelchair access to a park or trail. Now, some of the concerns that were raised include the actual delivery of trails. Can we get it all done? Maintenance, which is always a challenge. Community engagement, which the plan does commit us to long-term, security, parking, trees, and whether or not we're continuing to protect the tree canopy, and displacement. Now, these are very real concerns, and the plan addresses them, but certainly more engagement and planning are going to be required as each trail is developed. That said, in our last round of engagement, we completed presentations at each NPU and returned for a vote. I'm pleased to say that 24 of 25 NPUs voted in favor of trails, with totals being 10-1 in favor of trails. So what's next for trails? DPR and its partners would like to see this plan adopted into the existing comprehensive development plan so that we can begin implementation, and implementation will be in threefold: incorporating it into the zoning code to ensure that trails are included in future development, incorporating the plan into the comprehensive transportation plan, and finally, continuing to identify resources with a plan to fund Trails ATL. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. We have questions from colleagues. I'll bring up Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
I'll defer to Mr. Bond first.
Sorry, Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your terrific presentation and all the hard work that you all have done to get us to this point. But I guess being a public safety minded person, was there any discussion or plans developed about the monitoring of the trails, i.e. the video integration system? Was there any discussion about?
Absolutely.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Just briefly, and as I said to begin with, as we develop each of these individual alignments, we will have to have more and more community engagement. But as it relates to security, of course, we are in the process of growing our officers, our rangers in our parks. Obviously, we want that to be incorporated into the trails. Also, conversations about lighting. We do have in our guidelines that we'd want to see lighting, but we also have to be concerned about the wildlife and how they respond to lighting. Our parks are open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. That is what we are expecting these trails to be available to people for. And then also, again, the integrated camera system.
So have you all begun any planning about how to finance that, or whether financing will come from that? Because I know that, I co-authored the legislation with Councilmember Amos for the Park Ranger Program. And I know that they are limited in what they can enforce, but I guess having a presence is better than no one. But I mean, the cameras play I think probably a more significant tool, particularly since unlike a park where you may have people congregating, people may often find themselves alone on certain extensions, or of the trail itself. So how specific have you all been about being able to develop and finance the cameras along the trails, and had you gotten that deep,
So yes, we have begun to have the conversation. In the first phase, there is funding identified, or the need is identified, looking at resources that may potentially be available, such as the T-Splost. But as it relates to, again, the camera issue, we need to have additional conversations about that. I'm here with the consultant, Eric Ganther. I just want to ask, do you have anything else you might want to add? Absolutely.
Good afternoon, council members. Great question. Thank you very much. Just to let you know about the security discussions that we've had with the Atlanta Police Department, they have a subset called the Path Force. Their Path Force currently protects us on the Beltline, and we are talking with them about how do we expand that as we expand the trail network around the city. With regard to cameras, cameras have been contemplated in all of the trails. The funding that we're looking at for phase one, or the cost related to phase one, we did not include cameras in that cost because the variability of that cost is great, and it depends on the location. It also depends on community outreach. Sometimes in our interaction with community members, they were very supportive of having security cameras. Other community members didn't feel as positively about security cameras. So we feel that that is something that would be on a trail by trail basis. We see where the closest access point is for the APD camera network, and then we're able to build out a price at that point and see where they're at that point in time. That network is evolving.
Well, I would hope, and I understand you have to take what the community gives you, as far as input, but as a practical matter, and given the history of some instances within the Parks Department, particularly an incident that happened at Piedmont Park where a camera wasn't operating, if you know what I'm referencing.
I do.
That I think is essential if we're going to ask people to use these trails, particularly in isolated areas, right? Long stretches of isolated areas, that we supplement their security at least with a camera. And so even if it's not, I know that it's a variable cost, like you said, based on technology or what type of camera you use, but if you can make an estimate as to what it would cost, because I think that will be a real concern. A lifetime ago, prior to the Olympics, when I served in District 3, I was very instrumental in assisting with the West Side Trail and the Lionel Hampton Trail with C.T. Martin being developed.
Thank you.
And one of the things that happened early on is that as they made their way west, they go through Washington Park, they go through Mosley Park, but in those isolated stretches in between, that's where people found themselves becoming victims. And so I don't want us to, in the euphoria of making sure that we complete these trail projects, and link parks, which they should be linked, crooks watch the news too, right?
For sure.
They read the paper too, and so if they know that there are long stretches of where people are going to be alone, that's where the term highwayman comes from, because people got robbed on the highways and byways in between towns. And so that we don't repeat those mistakes, and just asking you if you would, even if it's a ballpark estimate, can include what the cost will be per trail, because I don't think we can afford, based on what has actually happened in Atlanta in some instances, to let people say, well, we want a camera over here, but I don't want a camera in my neighborhood. I think we need to secure the entire system. So I hope that you all will do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments from colleagues? I just want to point out that there was a tremendous amount of public engagement around this project. Eric, Path Foundation, Tara, I know that you all did several rounds of community meetings all over the city of Atlanta. And so I just want to commend you for that work, meeting with council members on a regular basis to go over the trail proposals in our districts. And so just thank you and everyone that put in such a tremendous amount of hard work on this. Any other?
Thank you.
Councilman Westmoreland.
Yeah, just a quick comment from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I will be brief, but this is the first time the city will have had a Trails Master Plan since the only one we've ever adopted back in 1992. I did a quick search in my email for the phrase Trails Master Plan, and the first email is from June 14th, 2022, and a note to Theo Pace that says, Matty Ice budget amendments coming at you. And so this is a nice little culmination of 3 years worth of work, and I want to acknowledge Greta DeMeo at PATH and Eric, who has been breathing this topic for a long time, and I'm excited to move into the implementation phase in the months and years to come. I will second Ms. Norwood's motion from a few minutes ago to approve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Thank you.
If there is no objection from the committee, may we take our remaining held papers before the tree protection ordinance?
Yes, please.
That would take us to item number 31, 250-1225, a substitute ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to to adopt the Stitch Master Plan as the City of Atlanta's plan reconnecting North Downtown Atlanta, to amend the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan by incorporating by reference said plan, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Forte.
Good afternoon, committee and council members. Just a few quick points on the Stitch. The Stitch is a vision that reconnects Midtown with downtown Atlanta. The master plan, which we're talking about today, recommends new development, infrastructure, policies, and programs with a new 17-acre community park that covers the downtown connector interstate as the center of it. There were more than 6,000 people engaged with over 20 community meetings, community events, and nearly 2,000 people signed up for updates via the newsletter during this process. A huge majority are in favor of this master plans. Some of the top comments include advocating for transportation other than cars, and needing a need for different types of housing and different levels of affordability, and public space activation. Both of the MPUs, which it spans over MPU E and M, are in support of this plan, and we hope to get this adopted into the CDP before the new Plan A update is adopted. And for more information, the stitchatl.com is available.
All right. Got a motion to approve by Dozier. I'll second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. That takes us to item number 43, 250-1313, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances at Chapter 54, Article 1, Section 54-1, to provide an exemption from the mandatory affordable housing requirements for publicly subsidized multifamily residential properties for student housing and for other purposes.
Thank you, colleagues. This item is ready to move forward, so I'll make a motion to approve. Second. A second by Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. That takes us to item number 44, 25R3511. May we have a motion to bring forth the substitute? The caption changes.
Second. Second by Dozier.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you. 25R3511, a resolution by Councilmember Algeria L. Boone, as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee, authorizing the City of Atlanta to authorize donations pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter to the following nonprofit charitable organizations: Teammates for Kids Foundation, Camp Kizzy, Dream Above the Influence, in an amount not to exceed $500.00 to each organization, and to Vox Teen Communication in an amount not to exceed $1,500.00 to support each organization's strong commitment to improving the lives, experiences, and opportunities of women and girls in Atlanta, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to make the donations authorized hereby from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. That takes us back to item number 29, 240-1691, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee, to amend the Atlanta City Code, Part 2, Chapter 158, Article 2, to adopt a new tree protection ordinance for the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
And I know we have some substitutes before us, so I'll make a motion to bring forth the substitute.
I'm supposed to pull that off. I'm supposed to motion to pull that off.
The vote is open.
So just put it. Is this for the substitute?
Yes, just to bring forth the substitute.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Prince making her way to the podium, but while she is, I just wanted to see if you could give us an explanation of the substitutes that are before us.
Sure, I can run through it pretty quickly here. So the substitute increases the low-income senior assistance program to $400,000. Remember, that's the help with the hazardous trees. It establishes recompense reductions for single-family and multifamily units based on area median income and the percentage of units that are affordable. It raises the recompense to $140 per inch. It adds several staff positions, 3 senior arborists, 6 field arborists. That would be 50% funded by the Tree Trust Fund and 50% by the general fund. It also authorizes funding for the secretary to the Tree Commission, which is in the current ordinance as well, and the project manager for the Tree Conservation Commission. And it adds a senior arborist in the Department of Parks and Recreation. Just so you know, the Department of City Planning would not fill these positions until they are necessary. This is just the authorization. This also gives the option for public projects, if they can't meet the inch-for-inch replacement, then they can possibly do urban forestry projects. And then if that doesn't work either, payment of recompense. We also have the tree registry program for all of our tree companies. This keeps the bad actors from working in our city. And we will also work with homeowners if they have an issue with their homeowner's insurance, requesting that they trim or remove trees. We will help them in those communications. I think that's it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to bring up. I don't know if everybody is aware, but the Department of City Planning does do code enforcement on the weekends. So if you see somebody illegally cutting trees, you let us know. So get out your phone, put this number in, weekend code enforcement. Ready? Ready? Okay. 404-330-6178. And you will become part of our tree brigade to let us know when illegal cutting is happening, because that's when it tends to happen, first thing Saturday morning, right? Or Sunday morning. Let us know, and we'll be out there. And I'm here for any questions you might have. That was just a quick rundown.
Questions from colleagues?
I do.
Councilman Bond.
Thank you for Commissioner Prince, and I know we voted to bring the substitute forward, but I don't know if we actually voted to pull it off held. But that being said, how did we arrive at this point that today these recommendations and this substitute would be before us?
So what we did was we went back to previous drafts that we had and made sure that we addressed all of the basic nuts and bolts things that we need to do here to get this tree ordinance done. As you know, we have to do testing to make sure that the tree protection ordinance works together with our new zoning ordinance. And we will do that in the second half of this year. And we will bring you a follow-up ordinance early next year with the new zoning ordinance. But in the meantime, we needed to update this ordinance and get all of these basic, important changes done.
Okay, I guess I'll repeat my question. Why are we moving this now? And because even just today, we've heard from folks on both sides of the spectrum that say that they want to have, I guess, more input or some other suggestions added to what we would pass. Have you all been in communications with folks on both ends of the spectrum to arrive at what we are asked to being considered today?
Yes, sir, constant communication.
But then why are they here, raising these issues with us today?
I think it's important to note that no matter what we do, no ordinance is going to make every single person happy. But what we have before you today are the basic things that we need for tree protection in our city right now. We will continue to work on this. We will continue to refine it, and we hope to bring to you early next year further amendments to the ordinance that will address some of the concerns that you've heard here today.
Well, some of the concerns that I've heard today seem like they might be able to be incorporated or addressed. And there are other things that happened, I guess, when the May 12th or 13th version came in. There were certain things that were actually stripped out that tree advocates feel that is absolutely necessary to be a part of the ordinance. And of course, representatives from the developer and business community have stated today that there are a few other things that they would like to see incorporated in this before we take a formal action. And then there are many that don't agree that any form of the tree ordinance has to coincide with our zoning ordinance. So how do we move forward and I guess justifying that?
Well, I would say this. This is the best ordinance that the City Department of City Planning can bring forward at this time. If you have other changes you would like to see, please let us know.
Well, as someone who's been involved in this for more than 10 years, there's a lot of discussion, I think, that probably ought to still take place before we take an action. I know a few years ago, prior to your arrival, we did a scaled-down version that was mentioned by one of the speakers here today, where we took the low-hanging fruit and moved forward with the commitment to get to the meat of what was in dispute. And that was almost 3 years ago, right? And so we've had two processes, really a third now, where we had an open meeting with no restriction on who could come in, right, and sit at the table. And then that's where we got the low-hanging fruit ordinance from. And then we had made a commitment to that group that we would meet again, but then you were brought on and a different process took place where we had a representative group to negotiate. We came up with what was sent to the NPUs, and then after that, we've seen this, what was the result of that, substantially pruned yet again. And you're right, people are not satisfied on either side. We did have a attempt at a work session that took place, but it was held on a day that in this room that backed it up to another required meeting by the charter, so they could only meet for a limited time. And not one question was asked about the tree ordinance, even though people were allowed to speak. So I watched the meeting, but it doesn't seem like there really has been, I guess, a more cooperative discussion, at least in public, about the ordinance. And so I guess, again, my question comes back to why now and why this version?
We have a new zoning ordinance that we're working on, as you know. It's the first new zoning ordinance in over 40 years. It's very important that the tree protection ordinance work together with the zoning ordinance. It is my understanding that the City Council would like to have the tree ordinance passed sooner rather than later. So what we have brought to you are the pieces that we feel can be adopted right now that we know will not be in conflict with the zoning ordinance. The other pieces we have to test against the zoning ordinance so that the two ordinances don't conflict. They have to be in alignment and they have to work together. I wouldn't want to bring you anything that didn't work.
Well, I guess in my experience, you know, I don't want to be in opposition to the mayor, but I would think that at least, since we're just getting this substitute today, that there ought to be a opportunity to discuss it publicly, right? And I don't know if we need to have another work session about it where people can ask questions and maybe kick the tires on it. And because I think people do feel passionately about it, and we have spent, as by my count, personally, about 10 years on it. There was someone from the audience that said that it's really about 15 years. So I wouldn't think that 2 more weeks, or, you know, so that we can have a discussion in public so people can actually vet and express themselves on either end of the spectrum where they are. You know, because I think as a result of what happened the last time, that there was a huge anticipation on both ends of the spectrum that we will be resolving this once and for all. That was before the zoning conversation kind of got mixed in with it. So I mean, I don't know. I think I have some unreadiness, because one of the things, you know, I've been around here a long time. And one of the things that was taught to me early by the people that I served with when I was first elected, who were actually the contemporaries of my parents, was that when you're making policy, you don't want to do anything that affects people's either their livelihood or their existence lightly. And so whatever measures you need to take to allow people to have a swing at the ball, you know, before you make it permanent, that you ought to do it. So I would hope that maybe we could have another work session, at least to hear from those who are concerned and affected by it, to give their opinion before we vote. That's kind of where I am. I don't want to be in opposition, like I said, I don't want to be in opposition to the mayor and his directives, but at the same time, I think we owe the public an opportunity to speak to us about what has been presented to us today. And they had, to my knowledge, I don't think anybody's seen it prior to this very moment. So that's kind of where I am on it.
Thank you. Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I too agree with the author of the paper. Coming into the room, I spoke with several constituents, and they are really, really wanting to see everything. They are wanting to see the last stab before we actually vote on that, and I think that's only fair to the community. I know everyone is really wanting to pass this right now, but I really think, in all fairness, I don't think folks in the audience have even seen the last version. And I think that 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we need to take the time. This is very important. This is very important. So I would hope that we would not pass this right now and give the public and all of those folks who have come down here over the past 2 months an opportunity to see the last version. We've just made 2 other changes to it. We received a couple of emails, and I think that's only fair that we allow those neighbors and, of course, my MPUs to look at it, especially those along Tuckawanna, Flamingo, and Benjamin Mays Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Norwood.
I am making a motion that we approve it today. I have been involved in all 3 tree preservation ordinances all the way back to 2001. I have followed this. I have read all of the different drafts, and I am ready to vote. I think the staff has worked extraordinarily hard. I think everyone has worked extraordinarily hard, and I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We got a second by Councilmember Dozier. I'll just add that, while I respect the author, and this is something that affects us citywide in all the districts of the city of Atlanta, and I know I've had several conversations with folks who agree with, various versions of this, and I think what we're seeing before us today is something that has been seen before. I think it's been refined. I think it's been debated for several months now. We've already had a work session to discuss this, and what I'm hearing from my constituents is that they're tired of us kicking the can down the road when it comes to the tree protection ordinance. Commissioner, I will ask you, I know we keep talking about testing. I'm not sure the average person actually knows what that looks like, so I'm just hoping that you can explain what does that testing process look like when you receive those applications here going forward?
So there are 2 things that we will do. The testing for the zoning ordinance is starting right now, and we'll be working in a parallel and sometimes together process with that. When new applications come in, they would be reviewed. For the zoning ordinance, they would be reviewed under the current ordinance and the proposed ordinance to see what the result is. Would the design of the project be different? Would the outcomes be different? Would we be getting the types of development that we want? With the tree ordinance, we have to make sure it works together with the rules of the zoning ordinance, and I'll give you an example. We have a lot of different zoning districts. The zoning district will tell you how much of the lot can be covered. Let's say a particular zoning district allows 90% of the lot to be covered, that is buildings plus pavement, leaving 20% for green space. Would the requirements of the tree ordinance work with that zoning district? Because the zoning district gives the property owner rights. It gives them the right to cover up, in this case, 20% of the property with buildings plus pavement. The zoning ordinance could not require, in this case, more than 20% of the site to be green. Can the types of buildings that are proposed for that zoning district still happen under this new zoning ordinance and this new tree protection ordinance? Can the type of site design we want happen? Are there places where trees can be preserved over being planted? How can we incentivize more tree preservation? If we cannot get more tree preservation, how can we incentivize more tree planting? How can we find other places to make the city cooler? For example, something like green roofs. How can we prevent flooding? For example, stream buffer restoration. And how does this work in terms of property rights and keeping the city out of court while we achieve our land use and development goals, as well as our tree preservation and flood prevention goals? It's all got to work together. We have had 20 years to figure out how to regulate tree preservation on single-family lots. We're going to need a little bit of time to look at the rest of the type of lots to see how we can get more trees in this city. We have a forestry master plan coming up. I'm sure you all remember seeing the grant. We're going to find more places to have more trees. growth. We've got to have an ordinance that facilitates that. This is very complicated. We need to give this the time and the analysis that it deserves. We need to get this right.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from colleagues?
Yeah.
Councilmember Bond.
Thank you. Well, again, it is complicated, and what we're passing today doesn't protect trees.
I'm sorry, it doesn't what?
It doesn't protect trees. And so for those who are interested in that, this isn't an ordinance that they would agree with. And for those of the other end of the spectrum, it's a Pyrrhic victory. It's a costly victory. And we say we want to get it right, but yet we're rushing today to approve it. Right? So that almost seems like a contradiction.
Councilman Bond, with all due respect, our current ordinance does protect trees, and we are leaving the tree preservation part of our current ordinance in place.
Well, this ordinance that would improve upon that has been stripped of those protections.
That's because we have to make sure it all works together with the zoning ordinance, and we will.
Well, I mean, that's an opinion that you have, but it's not necessarily an opinion that I share, right?
I understand.
And that others share. And so, as the author of the paper, I guess it's just been my experience, but we're in a new day from when I started, but when an author asks for a work session on a paper, is usually granted that request, particularly since this is a new version. And given the fact that the protections that advocates were seeking aren't applied to this, I don't see how 2 weeks or a week to have another meeting, to have people from both ends of the spectrum to come in and give their opinion. And we actually heard some good ideas from folks on both ends about how this ordinance can be improved. I just don't see how rushing makes that stand. But I'm not going to stand in opposition of the mayor. I was asked about that, and I've given that commitment. But I am disappointed, and I want to be on the record for that. But I am going to work to put together a piece of legislation to track the progress of this and ask for a report of your department until this quote-unquote new ordinance is drafted in the coming year, so that we can have a monitoring to see if this is actually, if your approach is actually being effective. Because, every day, you don't want to hamper people in their industry, but we also have an obligation to Atlanta, to not only to preserve the health and wellness of our citizens, but the quality of life and the historical image of our city, which is centered on trees. And so, people say they respect you, but they do what you don't want to do. I don't know if that's respect or not.
Councilmember
So
Boone.
I withdraw.
Sorry, Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I will not be supporting this today. I do not think it's right to vote on a piece of legislation that over 80% of the citizens that have come down over the past 2 or 3 months have not seen. I will not support this today. There have been several changes, and I do not believe that this truly protects trees. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have a motion before us to approve. It's been properly seconded. If you could please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 1 nay, 1 abstention. This item is favorable on substitute.
Thank you.
That concludes our legislative items.
Thank you. Any parting words from comments from colleagues? Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I wanted to invite members of the public. Our office is partnering with an organization called Stimulate America and their Magnolia Club initiative, because right here at Atlanta City Hall on Thursday, June the 12th, we are hosting a jobs, housing, and resource fair for our seniors. We'll have resources, we'll have job opportunities, and we'll have opportunities for seniors to connect in ways that they need, recognizing everything that's happening in Washington, how it's trickling down to Atlanta, and our seniors are disproportionately being impacted by that. Separately, I was alluded earlier to today in the presentation earlier this Friday at, I believe, 1 o'clock p.m. We will be breaking ground at 405 Cooper Street in Mechanicsville for 100 new affordable homes for our formerly unsheltered population. We'll be breaking ground and hopefully having a ribbon cutting just in a few months as a rapid housing project, which means we'll be getting it underway very quickly. So I hope you join us for that as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This week, on this Saturday, June the 14th, there are two major events that take place on the steps of City Hall at 8 a.m. I'm partnering with clergy across the city to try to organize, in honor of Father's Day, 1,000 men praying here on the Mitchell Street side of City Hall at 68 Mitchell Street at 8 a.m. We have a main event in partnership with council members, leading with Councilmember Antonio Lewis and also Councilmember Ishe Collins, a men's health and wellness fair at the Roselle Fan Recreation Center located on Cleveland Avenue. We'll have Grady Hospital and other health agencies there for all types of screenings for men in honor of the Father's Day weekend. It's completely free to the public, free food, free access to PSAs, all types of diabetes, high blood pressure testing, health and wellness seminars, and the public is invited. And so if you know a man, if you had a man as your father, if you live next door to a man, if you have a man for your brother, if you have a man for a son, if you're married to a man or know someone who is, please invite them to come out Saturday for the free men's health and wellness fair. And happy Father's Day to those who are so oriented.
Thank you. And with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.